Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In today's video, I'm straight back into the UK PC build with a kill at £200 gaming PC build for the months of November and December 2015. Before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe for PC builds in both UK and US currencies every single month. And without any further ado, let's get straight into the build. The build is easily capable of smashing your favourite titles such as World of Warcraft, League of Legends, CSGO and Minecraft at over 60 frames per second, 720p and 1080p in some cases, as well as doing some the latest AAA titles at sort of lower settings with your anti-aliasing and your textures turned down. So the first part I've gone for, the CPU, is actually an APU which combines the graphics, so your normal graphics card and your CPU, into one just for a load of extra value. At £44, this AMD A6 7400K comes out the box at 3.5 GHz and is a dual core CPU. It doesn't have any hyper-threading, which means it will be incompatible with some of the latest AAA titles. However, for £200, you really do have to accept that. It is overclockable, so I reckon you could get a good 4 GHz on a stock cooler, but even if you don't want to overclock it, it does come out the box at a healthy 3.5 GHz. The motherboard I've gone for is a really solid motherboard from Asus. So I've used this motherboard a lot and had a lot of good experiences with this motherboard, never ever had an issue. It's the A68HM-K. It comes in a micro ATX form factor, and the FM2 Plus socket means you can facilitate AMD APUs on the A6, A8 and A10 line, as well as some of the Athlon X4 860K, which is a quad-core CPU. You can go right up to a quad-core APU on this motherboard, and there's also a PCIe 3.0 slot, which means that you are able to add a graphics card in later on down the line, such as the GTX 950 or the R7 360 and 370, which just means you get a load of extra gaming performance even for the latest AAA titles later on down the line if you so desire. For memory, I went for another personal favourite of mine. I trust this stuff to the moon and back, which sounds ridiculous, but I really do. Never had a single problem with this Kingston HyperX Fury. I've got a white one in the parts list. However, you can also get blue, black and red. This comes out the box at 1866 MHz, which is a little bit faster than your standard 1600 MHz, and that's more beneficial for the APU. As in, like a GPU, it doesn't have its own memory, it instead uses the system memory. I went for one 4GB DIMM, which means you could add another 4GB DIMM later on down the line for 8GB of RAM, and that is definitely an upgrade that I would do as soon as possible. For storage, I went for a 1TB Seagate Barracuda, comes in at £34. You could also get the WD Caviar Blue 1TB if you so desired. However, this hard drive I've used before. I've got this in a NAS, which means that I'm constantly reading and writing files to it, and I've never had a problem with one of them yet. It's a really solid hard drive, got loads and loads of storage, loads of capacity for all your movies, music, games and schoolwork. For the case, I went for the Exigmatech Recon. It's an ATX mid-tower case, and for £22, it's an absolute steal. The motherboard is a micro ATX motherboard, and this case supports up to full-size ATX, which does mean that you'll have a little bit more room to play around with, which I find is a lot more helpful, especially if it's your first build. The more room you've got inside your case, the better. The case isn't huge, it is a smaller case, it isn't a full tower case or anything like that, so it isn't going to be absolutely massive. However, it isn't so small that you're going to be struggling to get different connectors in. For the power supply, I went for something with a little bit of leeway. It's the EVGA 430W 80+35 power supply. That means it's guaranteed to run above 80% load at 80% capacity, at 20, 50 and 100% load scenarios, and that has been officially tested. It's got plenty of headroom for this build, so much so that if you did want to add a GTX 950 or an R7 360 or 370, that you do have enough wattage and enough room to do that and add a graphics card in later on down the line without having to upgrade the power supply. And that is it for my £200 build, not dollars, £200 build for November and December 2015. If you have found this video helpful, drop a like rating below and remember to subscribe, and we will as always see you in the next GeekaWhat video.